Here at Be Freaking Awesome, we believe that life is too short to be anything less than extraordinary. Join us as we explore what it means to live authentically, grow continuously, and have a blast while doing it. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of Be Freaking Awesome. I'm one of your hosts, Sami, here with Angela Belford, and today we are joined by a very special guest and author, Todd Smith. Todd, before we jump in too far to our topic, why don't you take a moment to just tell us a little bit about who you are and your background for our listeners who may not have heard of you before?
That'd be great. First of all, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you, Angela, for the invitation. Yeah, I own two businesses, Royce Joseph Capital and Todd Smith Consulting. I also grew up in a small family business that we built into a rather large company, and then unfortunately we had to close that when my father, who owned it, and the office manager both died 6 weeks apart, and that goes back about 25 years. In my current business, Royce Joseph Capital, I package and place business loans and commercial real estate loans locally here in New Jersey and around the country. And then out of that came the consulting practice, because I found out frequently business owners did not need money. They needed some guidance before they got to the money. And the book I wrote, I've written 3. The one we're going to discuss is First and 10 on the 20. Is it football, business, or life?
I love that. Also, Angela, that feels similar to your story in some ways, that in 2008, you started work as a business consultant and then stumbled your way into marketing because your first several clients all needed marketing support. And they were like, well, let's go figure it out.
Yeah, I say a lot that I'm a paid problem solver, and I think if you're in sales, that's what your job is. And so I wanted to help people start businesses because my husband wouldn't let me start another business myself. And so it was 2008. We're in the throes of the Great Recession, and people are like, I don't know about starting a business, but I've just had to hire my salesperson. Can you help with that? I'm like, well, yeah, let's look at your website. Oh, my what? I need a website? Like, yeah. Let's get to a website. So the first 4 clients that I talked to needed a website, and then just really grew it. You know, I got to probably client 8 or 9, and I said, okay, I need your logo. I don't have a logo. Can you do a logo? Yep. And I got home. My husband's like, you know how to do a logo? I'm like, I can figure it out. And then somebody's like, hey, can you put my logo on a business card? Hey, can you do this? Can you? Yep. And about 2 years later, I was like, oh, I have a full service marketing agency. Totally planned. You should start with the end in mind. No way, man. I just solved problems. Hired smart people that were struggling after the recession and built a great company by solving people's problems.
I think that's what we all do. And it's funny, I started Royce Joseph Capital in between owning my business and then with my father, and then starting this business, Royce Joseph Capital. I was in the banking business for a while, and I was the last in, first out when the recession hit.
Yep.
My wife goes, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to open another business, and off I went. I just never looked back. You just keep rolling, and we do solve problems. That is the whole key to being in business, is solving problems and encouraging your clients to look at the obstacles and circumvent them. That's it. That's the key. That's the secret sauce. And in my book, I actually call it the person in the skybox, because the coach, the business owner, and we relate that to sports, the coach is on the sideline in football, the baseball manager's in a dugout, the soccer coach is on the sideline, and the action takes all over the field. The only person that has the complete view of everything is the person in the skybox. It's the assistant coaches that they have sitting way above the field. And that's the perspective I take when I help a client, is let me take a look at it from a new perspective. And that's I think that's what we all do in business. Take a look at stuff from a new perspective, because business owners have blinders.
Okay, I'm going to make you unpack the metaphor. So do you encourage your clients then to go with you to the skybox so that you help them see it from a different angle?
Yes, I do encourage that, but I take the metaphor of the coach, let's use football, always has a headset on, listening to the person up top, because it's a fresh perspective.
Okay.
That's what because you don't want to alter, you don't want to You don't want to take over for the coach. You don't want to take over for the business owner.
Mm-hmm.
You want to give them guidance so they can make better decisions. And I think that's true for many professions, the accounting profession, the financial advisor, uh, all of them, the lawyer, the legal profession. When you have a business owner, it's the coach. We look at that group as being the assistant coaches to give the head coach the best information possible so they can make great decisions.
I also think to play the metaphor out more, if you take the coach off the sideline and you remove them from the action, the game doesn't stop. Like, somebody is still needed there to continue to call plays. And if you don't, then the game's going to continue going, and there may not be a leader there to call the plays and to say, hey guys, this is what we're doing. Here's what's happening next. So I think that, unless you're really at a true halftime in your business, which I don't think happens that often for many of us, that we get to take a complete pause in our business, you kind of have to stay in the game. You do need those advisors, and you need those moments where you're pausing, you're huddling, you're getting input. But if you step away entirely, you might have a couple plays or two that don't go very well at all. So
I agree with most of what you said. I do believe in business
we
need seasons.
Yes.
And I have a chapter in my book called Seasons. We're all driven. I mean, everyone on this call is driven, and most of the people listening to this are driven, and our clients are driven. You cannot jog, play football, practice music 24/7, 365. So you do need downtime. So I believe seasons are important. To take a vacation, take a day off, step away from what you do, turn the cell phone off. It's unless someone unfortunately has a tragic accident or is severely ill, I think we can live without the cell phones for a day.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
I love that. And we're always here for yes and but big believers in taking rest and relaxation. I think the key is that we'll just keep hammering this metaphor. We're going to stick with it. But if we have done our job as the coach and we have a playbook, then we hopefully have another assistant coach that we can hand that off that can make sure those plays still continue to run smoothly. What I was thinking is that, and maybe my thought is more around game film, because I do think that as consultants we do well when we can help the business owner not always see it from our perspective, but just shift their perspective and make sure that they take a moment, because then they're going to make better decisions on the field if they pause and just good teams watch game film and see what went well and what didn't go well. I think that's the beauty of hiring a coach or a consultant, is to have someone else that can lead you through that guide, that objective process to help you figure out what you can do better.
I agree with that as well. And I don't always expect or anticipate they take our advice verbatim. If we can add a building block to their decision-making progress or the way they're going to make decisions, if we make a suggestion and it gets them thinking and they end up with a better way to do something, there's nothing wrong with that either. Because
that's even better.
When I sit in board of directors meetings, and we're discussing whatever, and someone makes a suggestion to make someone else think, the original comment was the foundation to what the end result was. And it doesn't mean that the original suggestion was wrong. It was one of the building blocks. So I like to get people to think.
I think that's the reason why I like to write books, is because I have people that are like, well, I don't remember everything I read. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. I just did a talk, and just to catch everybody up, Todd and I met because we have a mutual coach in common. It's the Darren LaCroix Love Fest these days, since we had another fellow coach of Darren's recently on the podcast. But I spoke to a group, and it was a 90-minute talk, which I hadn't done in a while. And I'm typically a 45-minute to an hour keynote, and this was a little more training like. And I said, listen, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I'm not going to change your life in the next hour and a half. That's too much pressure for 90 minutes. But I am going to give you one or two ideas that are going to change the trajectory of where you're going. And I think whether that's a book, a talk, I think that's why conferences are really important, going to industry conferences, because you may get an idea. You don't even know that that idea was the spark that
Right.
got you thinking in a different way and got you like your shower brain going a little bit differently.
Angela, to yes and you, I do think you change people's lives, and I think it's fair. I think a more accurate statement is you're not going to leave this hour and a half with a 180-degree flip on your life. Like, it's not going to be the you before this talk and the you after this talk, and they're two completely different people. But I don't want others to mishear what you said, and that when you can shift the trajectory in somebody else's life even a little bit, that is life change, and that is meaning, and that is impact that people can have. That if you can help share an idea, help solve a problem, help make an impact in some way, even if it's small, it can actually be huge. And so I don't want people to mishear, you did change lives. Did somebody, there are times where I was in a group session recently where somebody, they had a lot of baggage and a lot of trauma, and they walked out of it and they were like, well, I don't understand why all of this grief is still here in my life and I'm still so angry. And it was like, right, this was like the introduction. This person had been through a lot, and a 1 hour session is not going to erase everything that you've been through. But can it be the shift to start to just steer you a little different? And so I think there's both. There's some people who expect everything will be solved in the single hour. It's probably unrealistic. But it's also not nothing. It is life change to change somebody's life by 1 or 2 degrees. They're going to end up in a whole different country.
And you never know what you say, how it's going to affect someone. I was interviewed a couple years ago. We were still, I don't know if we were coming out of COVID or we were still in COVID. And I got called by someone, one of the local colleges, wanted to know the summer project for these interns was to write a crisis management brochure. That was the summer project.
Sure.
And they said, would I be okay if they interview me? I said, I'd be thrilled to do it. Absolutely. Because I had interns, I was coaching them during COVID. I said, I'll be happy to help somebody else. So they interviewed me and went very well. And I guess it turned out okay. I never saw it, but that's all right. It got back to me months later that one of the young ladies said I changed her life. And I said, what did I say that changed her life? It was this kind of a dialogue. I said, if you could go back to this young lady and find out, I'd really like to know. And it got back to me a few weeks later. I have this philosophy that when you're being challenged, there's no answer to the question, why me? There's no answer. I don't care. Who knows why you? There are answers to solution-focused questions. And to obtain a solution-focused question, spend 20% of your time understanding and comprehending the challenge, 80% of the time seeking a solution, asking yourself solution-focused questions. She said it changed her life, and I would have no idea. It was done as a business seminar for people who were challenged. So, Angela, when you say you're not there to change people's lives, when you're on the platform, we're changing something. We're changing somebody's life. They may not remember the entire 90 minutes, 45 minutes, a word, a phrase, a sentence, a smile, an attitude. It's very powerful, I believe, when you're given that gift to provide knowledge to an audience. It is, I always ask myself before I walk on the platform, I have 3 comments that I say. Number 1, they brought me here because I'm the expert. Confidence. How can I make the person who engaged me make them look really good because it's their job? And the third one, who in the audience am I going to touch? Those are the 3 final things I say before I walk on stage.
I love that. And for me, I was definitely stressing out because I'm like 90 minutes, 90 minutes. I've worked my keynote to where I do the 45 minutes to an hour without PowerPoint. And I was like, I'm not doing 90 minutes without PowerPoint because I actually transitioned to a teaching. And while I was equal parts stressing and like I reframed that and figured out, you know what, this is what you do when you get ready for a new talk is that you think about it and this is how you take it seriously. Is it really means a lot to you? And so what could be defined as stressing was also just really taking it seriously. So I would say that I reframed that a little bit. But the other thing is that I was like, I know that I know that I know that
Right.
somebody is going to get something out of this.
Correct.
You've never given a talk ever that somebody didn't get something out of it. And I had the benefit in this case of I knew my cousin was going to be in the audience, as well as I had invited a new friend that we needed to connect. I'm like, come hear me speak. And so I knew I would at least hear from those two. But it was I was trying to just set the level set, and so I appreciate the feedback of like it's not sometimes and maybe because I've witnessed this with my husband, is like, I don't know what I got out of that. I don't understand the point of that 45 minutes. I'm like, well, but all you needed was one idea.
Right.
All you needed was one thought. And it just keeps moving, and you don't have to absorb and retain, and the whole thing doesn't even have to be applicable. It's okay if you read a book and you only get one idea out of
Right.
it. That is worthwhile. And so that's what I was trying to convey. That was the first time I ever said that like that. And I'll keep working on it. So thanks, you guys, for that feedback.
Well, and I'd love to jump in and maybe shift us a little bit, because when you talk about whether a talk or a book, impacting one person, I do want to bring us back. We are here to talk about somebody's book, and Todd,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear
That's
more.
Okay. I'm enjoying the conversation. I'm learning, Angela.
No, I was like, I love it. But Todd, I would love to hear tell us a little bit more about what brought you to this book. Why you said this is your third one you've written, which
Correct.
that then to me says sometimes people write their first book. It's because it was that lifelong, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to get it out there. But then when you're the type that's like, great, I went through that really painful process. Now I'm going to do it again and again. Tell us more about what the journey that led to this book and sort of what prompted it for you.
Well, I'm going to bring up my first book first, if you don't mind, because that's the book
Yes.
I'm most proud of. It's called I Pledge Allegiance. It's a novelization of the plight of the homeless veterans in the country. And I'm not a veteran. I did it like football. I did it from an outside perspective. The facts in the book are true. It was modeled after the book Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, where the facts were true in the book, but the story was not true, or fiction, rather, lack of a better word. We had a book signing. We donated the proceeds to charity, my wife and I, and that's the board of directors I sit on now, Community Hope. It's the largest not-for-profit in New Jersey dealing with homeless veteran issues, support services for veterans' family. That came about, if I could elaborate. I got laid off, opened my business, told my wife I was going to write a book. I started writing a thriller. I read an article about the homeless veterans, came up with this idea for the book. I Pledge Allegiance, and I put the first one down, and I wrote the second one, and off I went. So I'm really proud of that book. It has sold around the world. Not in great numbers. I am not a huge author by any stretch. I tell people I'm the least known famous person in the world. I was, but it did. Sweden has the same problem. When the book came out, people called me from Sweden. I had a Navy veteran, send me an email. I haven't cried at a book since I was in the third grade. So it's a pretty powerful book. So we've done a lot of. I'd like to think we did good stuff with it, but that's the book I'm most proud of. I know that's not the one you wanted to talk about.
No, that's okay. No,
really near and dear to my heart.
people, long-term listeners know that are probably going to be like, "Oh, Angela set that up." Honestly, since we talked, I had forgotten that was a big thing. That's a thing, and a heart passion that we both share. And 'cause I've been a homeless advocate for 8 years now,
Right.
and have a TED Talk, as most people know, and really talking about experiencing homelessness myself. And I just have such a I don't think it's right for anybody to be homeless, but especially people who have dedicated a portion of their life to protecting our freedoms. Like, I'm gonna get choked up. Like, I can't listen to Lee Greenwood, Proud to be an American, without deep military background with our family. I was point of contact for my brother who served. And anyway, so no, I greatly appreciate, and just even raising awareness, because I think it is absolutely and utterly ridiculous in a country like ours that we are not taking care of people who've dedicated to. I mean, there's so many. Anyway, thank you. No, I am absolutely. I love that.
I'm hoping it brings awareness, and I have a little piece to play in solving that problem. I'm not the guru who's solving all of it, but I'd like to think I'm a little piece of that puzzle that is bringing an end to it all.
I love that. Yeah.
So
then you jumped. Well, then you wrote that one, and then you jumped into your second one. Is that what you said?
Right.
What's the second one? Let's go ahead and hear your story now.
The second one is the insomnia book. It is called Navigating the Lending Maze. It's a small business owner's guide to how to obtain financing. So if you're having sleep issues, pull it out. Okay.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Or it's a how-to guide.
It is.
Sure.
I tell people, if you want to cry, read the first one. You want to sleep, read the second one. You want inspiration, read the third one. So that's how I describe them.
A whole range.
How did First and 10 on the 20 come about?
Yeah.
From watching many football games. I was in the marching band in high school and just watched music, just watched stuff.
What's your instrument?
Trumpet. It's right behind me.
Oh! And Angela, don't make that sound.
Over there. The good trumpet's over here. I still practice 3-4 times a week.
Oh, I love that. So I met my husband in the marching band at the University of Arkansas. He is a trombone player. I played a couple different things. I was not everything, a couple different things. I was not great at anything, but I was mediocre at all the things that I did. So I did color guard. That got dramatic. So I needed a new section. So I switched to become a tuba player because they had the least drama in the band. And I was very proud that I was second to last chair in the tuba section, which means me at 6 months playing tuba beat out some poor sap who had been playing for 10 years because he couldn't perform in an audition. Not because I was better than him, but because he couldn't handle an audition. So I still take my second to last chair anyway, whatever. That's me. But I love marching band.
Back to you, Todd.
Yeah, so I was a band geek.
Here for it. Good company.
But as I tell everyone, you can tell by the hair color, I'm not a young guy anymore. I can still play trumpet. I can no longer run because of my knee issues.
Yeah.
So music you can take straight through until you go on to the next world. So Jerry Lee Lewis many years ago on TV, 10, 12 years ago, where he was really fading. He couldn't make a coherent sentence. When they put him in front of the piano, it was incredible. So music is one of those traits you want to call hobbies, activities you can take through irrespective of a physical challenge. So that's why I always encourage people to take up an instrument.
And yet you still wrote about football. So let's keep on. Let's go back to football.
Okay, let's get back to there is.
We go from unpacking the metaphor to completely. I love it. I love it. I'm here for
this
it.
This is our podcast.
My wife calls I deal with too much spaghetti talk.
I love it. I talk about having to untangle the spaghetti a lot.
So, out of all the sports, I believe football is a very visual on how businesses run. That's what started it. To play in the NFL, I think to even play high-level college football and maybe high school football, if it's a competitive town or a big school, you have to have somewhat of an ego. I just believe you do. You can't, uh, it's like gladiators without dying. I mean, you have to have a certain amount of ego
I
to
think
get
that's fair.
on the field and in the
Yeah.
arena. And at a high level, how does the head coach get 40 grown men that are huge coordinated to execute a play within 35 seconds, 45 seconds, whatever that time frame is? It's because of all the structure and planning they do ahead of time. There are close to 2,000 employees for every national football team, from the parking person with the parking all the way through management, the people on the field, the physical therapists, all that. And I believe that's the number. It may be a little lower, but it's well over 1,000. I don't have my notes in front of me. So, but only one person is carrying the ball at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
So you start breaking down the game on people. How do they prepare to be a player? How do they prepare to be a coach? And really, what is preparation? The ability to drop back and punt. You're not declaring defeat. All right, I got to punt. No, you're regrouping because you're not throwing the towel into the game. It's the 3 stages of preparation that I believe everyone should have in business. And I define preparation as this: the actions you take when no one is looking to enhance the actions you take when someone is looking. Every athlete has to be personally responsible to be prepared to walk on the field. Everyone. The head coach at that level is not telling the guy to get a better diet, go to the weight. No, they show up because it's competitive. That's personal preparation, and I relay that to business. We in business need to be personally prepared. It doesn't matter what position you have. And I tell companies when I do this, if the person is employed, the person is important. So no one's, I gave this to a discussion once to a construction and building group. And I said, if you're a builder of substance, someone's answering your phone. Now, we do have automated phones, and that's a whole nother scenario I hate. But someone's answering your phone. Now, I ask, who's the last person? That's the first person to give the first impression of your firm. Who's the last person to give the first impression of the new building? It's the person who cleans the building.
Mm-hmm.
Are they the highest paid people in your company? How important is what they do? They're an advertisement for your company.
Yeah.
Then there's organizational preparation. Someone's sitting in the boardroom or in off season deciding who's going to be on the team. We just had the football draft last week. Someone's making those decisions to keep everyone coordinated. Then in the organizational preparation, someone has to coordinate the plays. Someone has to lay that all on paper. And then in action preparation, it's the coming together of both. And it doesn't matter what business you're in, everyone's coordinated. Even this podcast we're doing is being coordinated. Angela, you contacted me, or I contacted you, however that works. We connected through a referral, right? That's how important your reputation is.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you do is an advertisement for you. Even when you go to the store, you don't know who you're going to run into. And people think I'm nuts. I never go to the store unless I'm in the middle of a project and I, need a screw or a nail or something, looking like I can't run into a client.
I think about that.
Oh.
Angela drives around town and her car has a personalized license plate, and she will get so mad when me or another family member or somebody is driving the car. And she's like, you need to realize that when you drive my car with my personal license plate on that, you represent my brand and my reputation everywhere you go. And you cut somebody off in traffic, you know what the first thing they see is? Your license plate that has my last name, my business name on that car. So even in how you drive, you represent me and our company and my reputation and your own reputation as well. As a teenager,
And
it was
sometimes
easier to convince us.
I accidentally will cut somebody off. I'm like, I hate when I have bad driving with a personalized plate.
Well, in New Jersey,
oh,
driving is a contact sport, I think. So I, it's
If you're
it's uh,
too gentle, it's a different kind of reputational risk.
so
there you go.
back to action preparation. Yes, it's a football book, and when I started doing my seminars, educational seminars, and keynotes, someone said, "Todd, you like football's great, but you really need to throw something else in." I said, "Okay." So I started throwing in Broadway musicals. A Broadway musical, and I asked this question. I describe a Broadway musical. I asked who's seen it. When I went to New Mexico to do a keynote, someone raised their hand. About 25 to 30% of the audience had been to Broadway. And the Broadway's musical is the same thing, personal preparation. Those actors, actresses, musicians, curtain people, lighting people, they are prepared. Then someone has to decide who's going to be in the orchestra, who's going to be the lead, who's going to do all this stuff. And then they rehearse. Now, if you've been to Broadway recently, this is not was the case years ago, many years ago, but it is now. Most of the orchestra's under the stage. So when they have to hit a B flat under the stage, the singer has to hit the same note at the same time. That's not done by accident.
Right.
And the only person that sees everything is the orchestra leader. That's the only person that sees absolutely everything. And I asked the question, are you running your business like a Broadway musical? Does everybody know what they need to do, when they need to do it, and all you have to do is coordinate it? And there's usually silence in the audience at that point in the question.
Sure.
Right. I think so many of us are showing up to work and to business as if we were showing up to a football game and we'd never stretched, we never practiced, we didn't communicate plays with our teammates, we didn't go and do the nutritional work, we didn't memorize our lines for the play, and we kind of just show up and say like, okay, great, let's see what happens today, and whatever, we'll go for it. And I think that you're right, it's just a huge disservice to not prepare and to not plan and not do your role right.
I think you guys could even, like, if you don't want to think about you could keep it in the football stadium, because it's not just the football team, but you guys as marching band, how many hours and hours and hours. And I, having gone to so many football games with some alumni who are ridiculously judgmental of unstraight lines and how when people are off, like you could use the metaphor of the marching band and the ones that are really sharp and in sync. You can look at the dance teams, and when they like there's times when I watch some of the dance teams and they are like, I can't even they move as one. You can't even single one of them out because they move so fluidly and they work together and they're so synchronized. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities even inside of if it's not the football team, if it's the marching band, if it's the there's all sorts of areas. And many of us have also worked in I think about kitchens, maybe because I have some new restaurant clients, and the things when they go smoothly and they go well and they're communicating well and they're not. So anyway, I think this is all super. So let me see if my ADD kept up with you. There's personal planning, there's organizational planning, and then there's action planning. Those are our
preparation.
Preparation.
One of the key phrases in the book is a great attitude coupled with a well thought out and executed plan is the path to success. A great attitude without a plan is only a party. So that is.
Wait, you gotta slow that down. We're gonna make you say
one
that
more
again.
time. That
slow
was so
that
good.
down. You went. Man, we got a bunch of little snappy sound bites, but I want to do that one more time.
A great attitude coupled with a well thought out and executed plan is the path to success. A great attitude without a plan is only a party.
Oh my gosh, I really love that. I love that so much.
That is right from my book.
That's fantastic. I
And
love
it's so
that.
true though.
It takes
Yeah.
hope. It takes
Mm-hmm.
hope. And if you want to go back to the football metaphor, you could look at it as teams coming onto the field. You know, the
Mm-hmm.
teams come running onto the field. I mean, we've all watched it. The fans are screaming. There are fireworks on Super Bowls. Sometimes they're led by people on horseback with a school flag. The place is erupting. Well,
Yeah.
what would happen if how excited would the fans be, which are the team's clients be, if they got to the sideline and they go, yo, coach, that was great, but what's next? You know, yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
Or
the opposite, go ahead,
yeah,
I'm sorry, Sammy.
oh no, that's okay. I was like, or sometimes where you have that big party and then they start playing and then it's like, oh,
Right.
oh, okay,
Yes.
well, that did not there was high energy there and we did not match that or we did not carry that energy through to
Well,
actually
and we see that
playing.
in business a lot where
Yeah.
people have like, like they come in with all the marketing and all the hype and all of that, and then they don't follow through and they don't have the execution and they don't deliver on their promises. And I mean, it's just a recipe for disaster because eventually the marketing money will run out, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
I talk a lot about when people, the metaphor of if you spend too much time preparing for your wedding and not enough time preparing for your marriage, it's going to be long term a lot more challenging. You can plan a big launch party, you can plan a big kickoff, but if you're not preparing for like the long term process, I think just in my season of life, weddings and babies are the things that people are doing a lot around me. And so they get really prepared for childbirth, but not for parenting. You spend so much time on your wedding, but not for your marriage. And it's like they're this is the kickoff. That is the marathon race kickoff party where everybody's cheering for you, and then all of a sudden you take off and you're kind of on your own. And it's like,
yeah.
ooh, it got kind of quiet for a moment, and now you're just having to like run and you have to follow whatever plan you made, presuming you made a plan, or you're flying by the seat of your pants, which is works to a degree, but probably not nearly as successful as if you had prepared and
I heard
outlined some things.
I heard a great quote that goes right along with what you're saying, Todd. It said that we can make a goal with grit, determination, and a lot of hard work, but you can't repeat that success without good systems and good processes.
And I think that goes. I think you're absolutely correct, and it goes to your restaurants. You said you picked up a couple restaurant clients. How that order goes from the server to the kitchen and then back to the table. That has to be well coordinated, or the
Yep.
restaurant's going to lose money, or people aren't coming back.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And everything. I mean, you can apply this to your restaurant clients. The
Yep.
server, how welcoming are they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Right.
we've all been to a restaurant where the server's having a bad day. Okay, or we've been to a restaurant where the server it couldn't be more polite. Uh, all those little things,
Mm-hmm.
they do, how they greet you, how they bring the plate, how they fill up your water, all that stuff is as important as the food itself.
Absolutely.
I on Valentine's Day went to a restaurant. I'm not going to identify which one, but having these restaurant clients now, I pay more attention to the details and I notice some of the inner workings. And the hostess, she was overwhelmed to the max and like could not. They had waves of reservations, and when our wave came in, she got so stressed and so overwhelmed that you could just it was just oozing off of her. And I was like, ooh, I know that the owner of this restaurant would not love to know that this is how his hostess is treating each guest when they walk up. Like, okay, your reservation was 5 minutes ago, but okay. And it was like, nope, that was the wrong thing to say to somebody who showed up on Valentine's Day 5 minutes. No, anyway, so there's all sorts of little things. After that moment, the waiter was phenomenal. The chef came by our table. It was phenomenal. Every other part of the experience was great, but it was very difficult knowing that your first impression through the door like was not A plus, and that brought the whole experience down for people. So anyway, this is my ADD is going all over the place, but I'm circling back to
Yep.
you. What's your first impression? What's your last impression? How are
Yep.
you training and building up everybody on your team? I want to ask a little bit of a different question. So, yes, Angela, do you want to, before I change the topic?
Do you know that we're at 40 minutes already?
I know, but it's a good question.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll see if I have a good answer.
We'll trim a little bit because we talked about anyway. Keep going.
So, you prepare and you make a plan and you're eager to go into it. And then something happens and the plan is not necessarily applicable anymore. What How do you talk to people about that? I'm sure this is a part of the book where do you call an audible? Where do you start to adjust while you're in the game? What does that look like for people in business, maybe in football, however that
That
is?
is a great question.
It's a great question.
And I have it written down as the 6 steps for the formula for success, which I call incrementalism. And
Okay.
it is so simple, and business owners have a challenge with it. You set the goal, you decide on the next step, you execute, you review, and you adjust where necessary. That
Hmm.
and you repeat. The next step in the adjustment are typically where business owners have the challenge because they have blinders, which we discussed earlier. That's the point of the person in the skybox to expose other aspects of how they can do things. Then they're so focused, they don't see that they can adjust. You could accomplish the same goal making an adjustment. I don't consider it changing. I consider it evolving.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's about evolving. People say, well, the business model changed. If the goal didn't change, yes, the business model may have to be adjusted, but you're still on the same track. It's like your GPS. How many times have we had the GPS pop up, go, traffic ahead, you want an alternate route? It doesn't change the goal. It just gives you a better way to get there at that moment. So that is how I try to educate clients that the next step in adjusting are critical. You get the
I
steps out of whack. What
Yeah.
sometimes becomes, it looks like a shortcut. I tell people
Mm.
becomes a very long route.
Yeah,
Mm.
that makes a lot of sense. Well, and I imagine part of the reason why business owners might get it wrong is I think we put more emotion on it than needs to be there. My own journey and embracing of my role as a salesperson within our business is I definitely started out and I was like, oh, sales feels slimy, I feel like a used car salesman. I don't want to do that. And I have come around and I'm really embraced the role of a problem solver. I'm not a
Right.
salesperson, I'm a problem solver. And recently I noticed I was a problem with my conversations that I was not getting I was telling people about what we do and they'd be like, wow, that's interesting, period. And I was like, great, I don't know where to go next. Like, how do I invite them into something? And rather than a previous version of Sammy, a maybe less healed version of Sammy, would have been like, oh my gosh, something is wrong with me. I keep saying this thing, and then nobody does anything with it, and it means something about me, and it means something about them, and it means something about the business. And I'd have this big pity party. And it was this week where I was like, oh, cool. I identified where I'm losing people. That's excellent. What great news for me to have figured out the part in the sales process where things like get lost, where things get dropped. That means that I know a solution oriented thing. Instead of saying, oh, why is this happening to me? I know where the problem is happening, which means that I now have opportunity to go address that area. But I think so many of us get caught up in this means something about me, or maybe I'm not meant to do this, or maybe the obstacle is trying to communicate to me that I shouldn't continue pursuing this or whatever. Maybe, but also maybe resistance is there so that we have to push towards the goal. Winning a football game does not come easily. Even teams that blow out other teams, the reason they did that is because they worked hard to get the skills that they got,
Correct.
and that you can still obstacles are not innately bad. Is what is required to achieve success. And so anyway, that's my own journey within that. I think that might be why others could struggle with it.
Speaking of sales, I think we forget everyone's in sales. I mean, even the president of a company is in sales because he's always asking people to buy into them. Uh, I think a better question is, who can we help?
Mhm.
Who can we help? What is their biggest challenge? And can we solve it? Or are they willing to pay us to solve it? That's really it was a game changer for me years ago. Is who can I help? Can I help you? You know, that's a
Yeah.
big difference in selling. I'm not here to sell my services. I'm here to find out what your challenge is. This is how I can help you. Or do you wish to engage us? That's really kind of it.
Yeah. I
love
think that's
that.
really good.
Okay, Todd, what's one last thing you want to leave? We've had so many little, I can't imagine the number of reels we can pull out of this, little snippet, little nuggets of dropped wisdom. What's
Well,
the last
so
thing? One
I
more
was like,
thing.
I want to
Oh, sorry.
clarify. We like to ask our guests if you would love to leave our listeners with one thing, if you hope they were to take
Okay.
one thing away from this, what's one thing you really hope that they walk away?
Never stop learning. Never stop. I call it knowledge acquisition. Never stop acquiring knowledge. Businesses are changing today so fast, and you will be more valuable to yourself, your family, your employer, your company, wherever you fit within the hierarchy of the working environment, acquiring as much knowledge as you can about your profession, your client's profession. That would be the nugget I think that I would like to leave everyone.
I think that's amazing. Where can people find you? Where can they find your book? If people want to follow up and get the seminar, do all the things, how can they reach you?
You can find me at toddsmithconsulting.com. My
Mhm.
books are there. My contact information's there. It's all there. My blog posts are there. I'm also on LinkedIn, but I'd love to hear from everyone. I enjoy talking to people and emails. But I guess that we're all people persons, I guess, when we're in this profession.
That is
That's
true.
awesome.
Thank you
for
so
coming.
much, Todd, for this conversation today. So
I
good.
really appreciate the opportunity, and everybody stay in touch. Thank you.
I love it. We'll be sure to put the links in the notes, so if you guys want to click on them, make it real handy for you. That'll be right below wherever you're listening to this. Thank you guys so much for listening today. Go subscribe to our newsletter to get more details and insider scoops about the podcast. And until next time, we hope you guys go be freaking awesome.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.